There are certainly some positive arguments in regard to nuclear energy. I won't dispute that. And there are certainly many countries around the world who use nuclear and have been doing so for 50 years or so. So is it really realistic? And is it realistic in the Australian, given the Australian conditions, the fact that we have lots of sun, plenty of wind, and certainly that storage in terms of batteries is a technology that is advancing rather rapidly. So is it really realistic, and has what the Liberal Party have produced, is it possible for that to happen? And what are the restraints, what are the restrictions, what are the problems with regard to the nuclear policy as outlined by the Dutton opposition? Well, I've decided to have a good look at that. I hope you find this interesting. So one of the things that I think is most important to understand is that there are heaps of counter-arguments, and you'll notice on Sky News, if you watch any of their broadcasts, that they're bringing on their experts, who are always people who have their snout in the trough of nuclear. They're people that have been advocating for nuclear for years, and they're obviously well qualified, but they certainly have their distinct biases. So is it really as significant as the Liberal Party would have us believe? Well, I'm just going to play a clip from Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer here in Australia, who had some interesting comments to make around whether or not it was going to be appropriate, and whether or not what the government opposition are offering is at all realistic.
The coalition at the end of last week, and what that's based on is the low growth scenario in the work that's been done. They don't dispute that, by the way. I mean, they've had the best part of a week now to say that that is wrong. The economy in those numbers is $294 billion smaller in 2050. The cumulative lost output between now and mid-century is $4 trillion. They haven't disputed that. And those are numbers which come from the scenario that they've adopted. And what that means is, what they are proposing is less growth in a smaller economy with less energy and less industry and higher energy prices. You know, this is the economic and fiscal absurdity of that trash that they put out at the end of last week. You know, it is, a lot of you have been around here longer than me, it is hard to recall a messier, more absurd set of numbers than those put out there by the coalition last week. And for the Australian people who are kind of sifting through claim and counterclaim and big numbers, I'll tell you the one most important thing that it means for them: higher electricity prices. And that's because our political opponents, for reasons that are unfathomable to sensible people, have gone for the version of energy which is the most expensive, would push up power bills the most, would take the longest, would deliver only a sliver of energy, and would turn Australia's back on this remarkable combination of economic advantages and opportunities that we have. And that's why we saw that nuclear meltdown from Dutton and Taylor last week, is because they finally had to come clean on the economic madness which is their proposal on nuclear. It's no surprise to us that it's fallen in a heap, and that's because it's mad.
And I think that he probably summed it up pretty well. It is a mad idea, and it probably won't have all that much traction here in Australia as well. And I don't know what the polls are showing right at the moment, but I guess my sense is that it won't wash. And there's some interesting comments that have been made in the media in relation to this. And the Sydney Morning Herald had an interesting article which says that modelling commissioned by the Coalition and completed by Frontier Economics claims Dutton's plan will cost $331 billion by 2050, 44% less than the consultative beliefs Labor would cost, based on much cheaper nuclear plant prices than many countries have faced overseas. But the Coalition's leadership has not unveiled the plans for short-term power bill relief. raising questions from its MPs in internal briefing before an election where all sides agree voters are suffering from cost of living pressure. And I think that's the key issue here, is that it's going to take a long time to build them, and when they're built, are they actually going to be all that much cheaper in terms of cost of energy? And the answer to that is a clear no. There have been some fudging of the figures, I think, in relation to the Frontier report, but nevertheless, it probably will not be all that popular, because what do we do in the next 10 years? The opposition's plan to build 7 nuclear plants would leave less room in the electricity grid for renewable energy. That's important to understand, including rooftop solar panels. It is committed to build 13 gigawatts of nuclear power, which it said would supply 38% of the grid's electricity by 2050. Under the opposition's preferred scenario, far fewer households would benefit from roof solar and batteries, reducing their bills, said Tristan Edis, Director of Investment Advisor from Green Energy Markets. The opposition has said it would construct nuclear plants on the sites of existing coal power plants, arguing this would cut $18 billion from the construction bill by limiting the renewable rollout and transmission lines needed to link them to cities. It also, this report was interesting as well. Opposition leader Peter Dutton's nuclear energy policy relies on millions of Australians not installing rooftop solar panels or driving electric vehicles, spurring opposition backbenchers to demand answers on how the plan reduces energy bills in the short term. And that's my issue. How does it reduce those bills in the next 10 years? Because people want that relief now or as soon as possible. The Coalition's modelling assumes Australia will use 40% less electricity than the government plans to by 2050, opening the opposition to criticism from Labor and the Climate Change Authority that its policies could crimp economic growth. Modelling commissioned by the Coalition and completed by Frontier Economics claims Dutton's plan will cost $331 billion, as I've discussed, 44% less, but the Coalition's leadership has not unveiled plans for short-term power bill relief, raising questions from its MPs in an internal briefing before an election where all sides agree voters are suffering from cost of living pressure. So this plan, it does not provide a solution for cost of living here in Australia. People are suffering. People are struggling to be able to pay all their bills, and particularly their electricity bill. And even though the government has provided some relief in that regard, the pressure is still on. So if the Coalition are unable to provide an adequate solution in the short term, then what are they really offering us? They're offering us something which sits in the future. They're offering us something which will not necessarily be cheaper, and they're certainly providing something which, to some people, not all people, can be unsafe. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, and please remember to subscribe to my channel for further videos and so forth. But do remember that these are the comments that I make are simply my views, and I try to present as easily as well as I can, I guess, alternate views as well. But it is important for us to understand that the issue around energy, the cost of building nuclear, is extremely excessive, and is something that should be considered in the light of the fact that we, the taxpayer, will wind up having to foot the bill. The Coalition is not even looking for private enterprise to dip into their own resources and provide funding for this. In fact, it's just going to be you and I that will provide the funding. And do we really want to do that? And do we want just to continue the rollout of renewables as proposed by the government to this point? So let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.